My wife cheated while I was paying off her student loans, so I closed every account in her name and walked away. Without saying a single word, I'm a 32-year-old guy. And I used to believe marriage meant sharing everything: dreams, struggles, and burdens. When I married Melissa, I knew she had almost $80,000 in student loans. It didn't scare me. I figured love was supposed to be stronger than numbers on a bank statement. I promised her we'll handle it together, and I meant it. I took extra shifts at the warehouse, started delivering food on weekends, and watched every dollar that left my account. Melissa used to joke that I was her financial hero. I'd smile, pretending it didn't sting that she called it a joke. She was working, too, but her job paid lessened. She often said she needed small treats to cope with the stress. A new pair of heels, a weekend spa session, sometimes a handbag that cost more than our monthly groceries. When I'd raise an eyebrow, she'd sigh and say, "Babe, I just want to feel normal." And because I loved her, I swallowed my frustration and kept paying the bills. I remember one night in particular, my back was sore from a 14-hour shift. I came home with takeout, proud that I'd managed to make another loan payment that morning. She greeted me with perfume and excitement. She'd bought concert tickets for her friend's birthday. When I asked how we could afford it, she brushed it off with, "Don't be so dramatic. It's just one night." That was the first time I felt a small crack inside me. Not anger, just quiet exhaustion. I stared at the spreadsheet of our finances later that night, realizing I was cutting corners while she was filling closets. Still, I convinced myself this was what marriage meant: one person holding more weight when the other struggled. I didn't know it yet, but that imbalance wasn't temporary. It was a warning, one I chose to ignore. It started with small things, so small I told myself I was imagining it. Melissa began coming home later than usual, saying work was crazy lately. I'd ask if she wanted dinner, but she'd wave me off with a tired smile and a glass of wine. I figured maybe the stress was getting to her. After all, she was trying to advance her career, and I didn't want to be the husband who doubted his wife. But soon, there were new clothes hanging in her closet. Not from discount racks, but designer labels. I asked where they came from, and she said, "Oh, just some clearance deals online." The lie was casual, but something about it didn't sit right. I'd catch faint scents of cologne that wasn't mine on her jacket. Sometimes she'd laugh at texts while cooking, locking her phone when I walked in. I'd try to joke about it. "Who's making you smile like that?" And she'd roll her eyes. "Relax, it's just coworkers." The more distant she got, the harder I tried. I planned a small dinner one Friday night to celebrate paying off another loan. I picked up her favorite wine, even cooked badly, but with effort. She never showed. No text, no call. When she came home after midnight, she was irritated I'd waited up. "You're being controlling," she snapped. That word hit me like a slap. I spent the rest of the night staring at the half-eaten dinner, trying to convince myself she was right. That maybe I was too sensitive, too insecure. The next morning, she kissed my cheek and acted like nothing happened. And just like that, I learned how easily love can silence your instincts, especially when you're desperate to believe you're not being left behind. A few weeks later, I finally met the name I'd heard her mention a dozen times. Jake, he was just a colleague. According to Melissa, part of her new consulting project, when she introduced us at a casual team dinner, he smiled with that overly polite charm that instantly rubbed me the wrong way. He looked polished, expensive watch, confident smirk. The kind of man who made everyone feel seen, except the one person he was threatening. "So, you're the husband who works all those long hours," he said with a grin. "Melissa always brags about how supportive you are." The way he said it, half compliment, half mockery, made my stomach twist. I forced a smile, replying, "Yeah, just doing what I can to help us both get ahead." Melissa laughed, a little too loudly, and changed the subject as the night went on. I noticed their small signals: the way she leaned toward him when he spoke, the subtle shoulder touches, the inside jokes I didn't understand. When the check came, he insisted on paying for the team, and Melissa shot me a quick glance that said, "Don't make a scene." On the drive home, she couldn't stop talking about how driven and visionary Jake was. I tried to stay calm, telling myself she was just admiring a coworker. But something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she'd been preparing to justify her fascination long before I noticed it. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. my mind buzzing with questions I didn't want to ask. I kept repeating the same thought: she's loyal. She loves you. You're just tired. But deep down, something quiet and cold whispered back. Or maybe she's already gone. It happened on a random Tuesday night. I was scrolling through my phone after dinner when a photo popped up on my feed. Melissa, tagged by a mutual friend. She was sitting at an upscale restaurant, smiling across the table at Jake. The caption read, "Power Duo added again." My stomach dropped. That was the same night she told me she was working late on client revisions. I showed her the picture when she came home. She glanced at it, then at me, unfazed. "You're seriously jealous over a work dinner," she said, her voice sharp. "You said you were at the office?" I replied quietly. She laughed bitterly. "Do you want me to report every meal I eat now? God, you're suffocating me." Her words burned. "I apologized him, sorry. I didn't mean to sound controlling him," she sighed, kissed my cheek, and walked off to the shower like the argument never happened. But that night, something inside me shifted. A few days later, I noticed hotel charges on our shared credit card listed under vague conference expenses. When I asked about them, she snapped, "It's business. Stop acting paranoid." I wanted to believe her so badly that I did what I'd always done, rationalized it. I told myself she was just ambitious, that maybe this was the price of supporting someone's career. The receipts, the distance, the tone in her voice, it all pointed toward something I refused to name. I lay awake listening to her soft breathing beside me, feeling like I was sharing a bed with a stranger. And for the first time in our marriage, I realized love wasn't the same as trust be, because mine was breaking quietly, piece by piece. Something in me stopped believing her words and started watching her actions. I didn't confront her again. I just observed. Every morning she'd leave for early meetings with her laptop bag, but no files inside. Every night she'd come home smelling faintly of cologne and hotel soap. She didn't even notice when I stopped asking how her day went. I started keeping quiet records, call logs, bank statements. I checked our shared account one night while she was in the shower, and that's when I saw it. Multiple charges from a luxury Airbnb booked under Jake's name. The payments were coming from our joint savings. Our savings. The money I'd been putting aside for our future. My chest tightened. I printed the receipts, each one like a knife to the ribs. She came out of the bathroom humming, wearing one of my shirts, pretending like nothing had changed. I smiled back, robotic, telling her she looked beautiful. Inside, I was burning alive in silence. I confided in my old friend Eric, who worked at the bank. He helped me pull more detailed transactions, transfers, even a few suspicious withdrawals. "She's been draining the account. Man," he said quietly, sliding me the printouts. "Looks like she's funneling money to a separate card." That night, I sat in the dark with the documents spread across the table. My heart didn't race, it slowed. The betrayal was no longer just emotional. It was calculated. She wasn't only cheating with another man, she was using me to fund it. When she came home later, laughing on the phone, I looked up at her and forced a smile. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said softly. "Everything's fine." But inside, I was done being blind. I just wasn't done being quiet yet. The night I discovered the truth about her future plans, something inside me snapped, but not in the way I expected. I didn't rage or break things. I just went cold. While checking our financial records one evening, I found a recent inquiry on my credit report, a joint mortgage application. My name, my signature. Except I'd never signed anything. At first, I thought it was an error. But the deeper I looked, the more it made sense. Melissa had been planning to buy a condo with Jake, and she used my credit score to secure pre-approval. My stomach turned. She wasn't just cheating. She was building an entirely new life on my back. The next morning, I watched her pack her laptop bag and kiss my cheek before leaving for work. She smiled like nothing was wrong. That was the moment I made a silent promise. You won't see this coming. Instead of confronting her, I visited the bank myself. I confirmed everything she'd forged my digital signature, using the same password she begged me to share years ago. The manager, a friend of Eric's, quietly flagged the application as fraudulent. No confrontation. No noise. Just quiet revenge being set in motion. For days, I acted normal. I brought her coffee, sent good morning texts, even laughed at her fake stories about team dinners. But every gesture was rehearsed. Every smile was strategy. I was giving her all the comfort she needed to keep believing she was safe. Because I wasn't going to explode, I was going to erase her. Slowly, surgically, and without a single warning. After that, everything became an act to play I performed so perfectly that even I started believing it sometimes. I kissed her good morning, texted her I love you at lunch, and asked about her projects every night. She smiled more, maybe thinking the tension had faded. In her mind, I was the forgiving, devoted husband again. In mine, I was already gone. Each night, when she fell asleep, I quietly worked on my plan. I began closing joint accounts one by one, rerouting my direct deposits to a new personal account she didn't know existed. I met with my bank's advisor, moved investments under my own name, and canceled every automatic payment tied to her credit cards. She didn't notice a thing. I remember one afternoon, watching her laugh on the phone, probably with Jacobs. I sat across the room pretending to scroll through my messages. She tossed her hair back, eyes bright, carefree. I'd never seen her that happy with me, and instead of breaking me, it gave me clarity. Love wasn't what kept me here, any more strategy did, when she went away for a conference weekend. I spent those 2 days methodically severing every financial tie between us. I packed important documents, changed passwords, even reset the login to her email just in case. I left everything looking untouched. So when she came home, nothing seemed different. She kissed me that night, saying, "You've been so patient lately." I really appreciate it. I smiled. "You deserve it." And in that moment, she had no idea that every word, every smile, every gentle gesture was part of the calm before the storm I'd already set in motion the weekend after that fake conference. I came home from an early shift. The apartment was quiet, except for faint music coming from the bedroom. At first I thought Melissa was still asleep, but then I saw it. A man's jacket on the couch, a half-empty wine bottle, 2 glasses. My chest tightened. I walked slowly toward the hallway, my heart beat loud enough to drown out the music. When I reached the bedroom door, I heard her laughter. Soft, breathy, familiar. And then a voice that wasn't mine. I froze. Every instinct screamed to burst in, to demand answers, to scream why. But I didn't. I stood there, gripping the doorknob until my hand shook, realizing I didn't need to see. I already knew. I turned around and walked out. My footsteps felt heavy, like I was dragging the weight of every lie she'd ever told me. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. I sat in my car for what must have been hours, staring at the steering wheel, replaying every memory that now meant nothing. The dinners, the promises, the nights she said she loved me. All hollow, all poisoned. For the first time, I let myself cry not out of anger, but out of grief. Grief for the version of me who believed love could fix anything. For the man who'd worked double shifts to pay off her debt, thinking it meant loyalty. When I finally went back inside later, the bed was empty. She must have heard me leave. There was a text waiting on my phone. "We need to talk later. Don't overreact." I laughed, quiet, bitter, broken. She still thought she had control. She had no idea I'd already hit rock bottom, and that's exactly where I stopped being her victim. The next morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm. The kind of calm that only comes after you've lost everything and realized there's nothing left to fear. Melissa was still asleep, her phone buzzing quietly beside her. I glanced at it once Jake's name flashed across the screen, and then I turned away. I didn't need to read a single word. I had all the confirmation I'd ever need. That day, I started the process of disappearing from her life financially first. I called the bank, transferred every cent from our joint savings to my private account, and canceled every shared credit card. I shut down her secondary user privileges, closed the accounts under my name, and notified the loan companies that I would no longer be responsible for any payments tied to her. Every transaction felt like cutting another invisible chain off my neck. By noon, her cards were declined. By evening, her utilities were frozen. She texted me from work, "Hey, my card isn't working. Can you check?" I replied simply, "Must be a bank issue." And I smiled, because for the first time in years, the balance of power had shifted, and she didn't even realize it. That night, I stood in the living room surrounded by silence. No yelling, no confrontation, no tears, just quiet satisfaction. I looked around at the apartment I'd paid for the furniture. The walls, the home she'd turned into a stage for betrayal land, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just freedom approaching, inch by inch. Melissa thought she was winning, that I'd crumble when I found out. But she didn't understand some men don't explode. Some men plan, and I was about to take everything she built on my back and leave her with exactly what she deserved. Nothing be the next morning, her confusion turned into panic. I was at work when the messages started flooding in, first calm, then frantic. Hey, my bank app isn't loading. Why are my cards declined? Then, a few hours later, what did you do? I didn't respond. I just watched the notifications stack up like dominoes. By afternoon, she was calling non-stop. I finally turned my phone face down and let the vibration hum quietly on the desk. My coworker glanced over. "Everything okay, man?" I smiled faintly. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's finally okay." When I got home, she was already there, red-eyed, pacing the kitchen. "You closed everything," she shouted. "You left me with nothing." I shrugged. "I didn't take anything that wasn't mine." Her voice cracked. "You're ruining my life." "No," I said softly, meeting her eyes for the first time in weeks. "You did that yourself." She tried calling Jake right in front of me, but he didn't pick up. She tried again. Still nothing. I could see it dawn on her that Jake wasn't her safety net, just a fantasy that vanished when the money did. Watching her realize that was more satisfying than any revenge speech I could have given. That night, I packed my last bag. She followed me to the door, voice trembling. "You can't just leave after everything we've built." I stopped. "You've built lies," I said quietly. "I just financed them," and then I walked out. No screaming, no threats, just the sound of her sobbing fading behind me. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. But I wasn't done, not yet. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. I'd moved out, cut contact, blocked her everywhere. The silence was my new peace, and I guarded it like a treasure. Then one afternoon, she showed up at my workplace. I saw her through the glass door's hair, messy eyes, swollen, desperation clinging to her like a second skin. For a brief moment, the sight of her almost pulled me back into old habits. Almost she waited near the reception desk, hands trembling as she spoke to the security guard. "I just need to talk to him," she said, her voice cracking. When he pointed toward me, our eyes met. The look on her face was a mix of guilt, fear, and disbelief, as if she still couldn't grasp that I'd actually walked away. "Please," she mouthed through the glass, "just 5 minutes." I stepped forward, my coworker's eyes following the scene like a movie playing out in real life. I stopped just a few feet from her. She started crying, reaching out. "I made a mistake. I didn't mean for things to go this far. Jackie's gone. He used me. Please, can we just talk?" I studied her quietly, searching for even a trace of the woman I once knew. But all I saw was someone who only felt regret after losing her safety net. So I did the only thing left that would hurt her more than anger ever could. I looked her dead in the eyes and walked past her without saying a single word. Her sobs echoed down the hallway, but I didn't turn back. The silence between us said everything words never could. It's been a year since that day, and sometimes I still wake up expecting to see her beside me. The ghost of routine lingers. The sound of her hairdryer, the smell of her perfume, the way she'd hum while scrolling through her phone. But then reality sets in and all I feel is peace. After leaving, I moved to a smaller apartment in another city. No shared bills, no joint accounts, no hidden debts. Just me. The first morning there, I brewed coffee and sat on the balcony, realizing I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. Not love, not forgiveness, not explanations. I'd spent years trying to fix a woman who never wanted to be saved. Now, I was learning how to save myself. Melissa tried reaching out a few more times through mutual friends. They said she lost her job, moved back with her parents, and still blames me for ruining her life. Maybe I did. But she ruined something far more valuable, and once that's gone, no amount of apologies can rebuild it. People always ask if I ever confronted her properly, if I ever told her how much she broke me. The truth, IZ, didn't need to. My silence became the loudest answer. Every dollar I earned now went into my future. Every breath I took without her name in it felt like victory. Sometimes revenge doesn't need fireworks or shouting matches. Sometimes it's just the quiet act of walking away so completely that the person who betrayed you has to live with the echo of your absence. That's what I did. I closed every account, every memory, every door, and left without a single word, because peace, I learned, is the sweetest form of revenge.